Hey friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on my channel. I do cooking videos, vlogs, hauls, all sorts of Disney themed content, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. This year I was hoping to share a bunch of cookie recipes leading up to the holidays, and so I'm calling this 12 Days of Cookies. Kind of a twist on my 12 Days of Vlogmas series that I did last year. I'll post that playlist up here. But this time I'm interspersing 12 different cookie recipes throughout Vlogmas, which is also going to be made up of, you guessed it, vlogs, but also hauls and other little bits and pieces that I'm putting together to try to make up a more complete Vlogmas. I'm not saying I'm gonna do all 25 days, but here's hoping that this gets me at least halfway there, right? If you're on my channel, you already know I eat gluten and dairy-free exclusively, and as such, most of my recipes are gluten and dairy-free. In fact, I think it's been years since I've shared a not gluten or dairy-free recipe on this channel. And I always enjoy the recipes that I share on here. I wouldn't share a recipe if I didn't love it. And if I don't love it, I make sure to let you know that, and I let you know why as well, so you can make any changes you might need to. But the biggest praise, the highest praise that I can expect for my food is when somebody that does not eat gluten and dairy free really enjoys it in spite of the allergy friendly adjustments I might have to make. And this recipe definitely fit that bill. Our cookie of the day today is coconut macaroons, and we are going to make ours gluten and dairy free, of course. I hesitate to call these allergy friendly because a lot of people are allergic to coconut, unfortunately, and I can't think of a way to make macaroons without them. Maybe a way exists, but not one that I know of. So you can see this is going to be a super simple recipe today. There's hardly any ingredients. We're going to use a 12-ounce bag of shredded coconut unsweetened. We're using the entire bag. We also need this whole can, this is 11.25 ounces, of sweetened condensed coconut milk. So you need condensed milk. We're using coconut milk to keep ours dairy free. If you're not worried about dairy free, feel free to use a can of regular condensed milk. 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour, or in our case, we're going to be using our Bob's 1-to-1 gluten-free. This is my favorite gluten-free flour. But again, if you're not worried about gluten at all, then you would just use regular all-purpose flour. We need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And lastly, we're going to need some white chocolate chips. Now, the traditional way of doing this is that you'd bake your cookies, and once they cool and like firm up, you'd melt your white chocolate in a double boiler and just dip the cookies in to kind of give them a little bit of a coating, a shell. You could just do half if you want. You could do the top. You could do it by the side. I have decided that instead, just to see if it works, maybe this is going to end up being a complete fail, I'm going to take about a 1/2 cup of the white chocolate chips and I'm going to mix them into the macaroon dough. So I'm going to end up making almost like white chocolate chip macaroons. This is all an experiment because I've never made the recipe this way. I've made this recipe a ton, but I've always done the dip method. So I'm curious to see how this works as a mix-in. So first things first, I'm preheating my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Whoops, there we go. And now in this bowl, I'm going to just dump in my entire bag of the shredded coconut. Remember, this is unsweetened, and I'm using 12 ounces here. Here comes our 2/3 of a cup of flour. Like that. I'm gonna add in my salt, and I'm gonna do y'all the favor of cutting the sound because this thing is super great, but it's also really obnoxiously loud. That feels about right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and mix this up now to combine everything together, the flour and the coconut. If the coconut were finer, I mean, I don't know how much finer it could possibly get, but basically if it were finer, we would just sift all this. So since sifting it is not an option because of the grain, as it were, of the coconut, this is what we're going to do instead. And once everything is pretty much completely combined, I'm going to open up my can of coconut condensed milk. That is a really nice texture. I've used different brands before. This is my first time using this brand. And they've kind of formed like a fat cap on top that I've had to really use some elbow grease to mix in. But this seems to have the exact same smooth texture that you'd expect out of a traditional condensed milk. So I really like that. I'm just going to go ahead and pour the entire can into our bowl. That clicking you're hearing is my oven preheating, coming to temperature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix all of this together now until it's combined. I may have to get in here with my hands. So if I do have to do that, then trust I will wash my hands first. But basically you want it all to come together because this is pretty much it. This is our dough. And once our dough is doughing, then I'm going to go ahead and incorporate my white chocolate chips. I just want to give this a chance to properly come together before I introduce any other variables into the equation. Seems to be coming together quite easily. Like I said, the condensed milks that I've used in the past have had a much different texture to them, and so they've needed a little more help coming together with the dry ingredients. But this seems to be doing all right on its own. So I don't know if you guys can see that, how it's kind of not quite solid, but certainly becoming its own like entity rather than a bunch of separate things. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead now and put my white chocolate chips in. And like I said, I'm winging this. I don't know if I should be adding more or less, what have you, but I'm going to go with a half cup. I feel like that's going to be more than enough to get like a good amount of disbursement throughout the dough. And the oven is ready. Look at that. This whole thing came together in the time that it took to preheat the oven, basically. Got my little handy dandy cookie scoop. I'll have this linked down below. I've got a cookie pan here, a cookie sheet, and I am going to line it with some parchment paper. Now, because there's no egg in these cookies, there's no baking powder, baking soda, etc., these cookies are really not going to spread at all. So whatever shape, whatever size you make them, that's pretty much the shape and size that they're going to stay as they bake. So I'm going to use the scoop. I don't want them to be perfect necessarily. I'm not really going for perfect. Rustic is just fine. I'm using this more so to get a sort of even distribution of the dough, because that way I'm hoping they will cook up at about the same pace. If you see that they're kind of falling apart a little bit, you can go ahead and use your clean hands to ball them up into a more cohesive shape, because once again, whatever shape you make these in, that's the shape they're gonna stay. Looks like I'm gonna get about 12 cookies, maybe 15 cookies to the pan. So I'm gonna have to do this in batches. So now these are gonna go into my preheated oven for 10 to 15 minutes, just until the coconut starts to brown. Once they come out of the oven, I am gonna leave them be for about 20 minutes before I try to move them so that they get a chance to cool down and firm up. What I'll do probably is I'll like slink this away so that I could put down another sheet of parchment paper and start on my next batch, so that while these are cooling, the other set is baking, and once everybody's ready, we'll do a taste test together. So we managed to get a total of 27 cookies out of the batch. Some are nicer shaped than others. The second batch actually turned out a lot rounder, moundier than the first one. But they're all going to taste the same, and I'm sure they're all going to be incredible. They turned out just the right level of like brown crunchy for me, I think. I did bake these for 15 minutes. So on the longer side of the range, considering their size, you could of course make them a little blonder if that's what you'd prefer. So this set right here has been cooling for over 15 minutes at this point. So I'm just going to grab the first one I find here. And you can see it is holding its shape just fine. It's still a little warm, but it's not falling apart. You can see the bottom has a nice little crispification here. This bit is probably going to be the tastiest part, and it's got the white chocolate chip right on there. So yep, crunchy, sweet. It's perfect. It's everything you'd want in a coconut macaroon. And now I'm going to split it so you can see the inside. That is so nice. Stunning. Amazing. 10 out of 10. No notes. And as I hope you can tell, the white chocolate chips are just adding to the situation, but they did not compromise the texture in any way. They're not making the cookies fall apart. They're adding just the right amount of sweetness. So you could still do the double boiler method, melt the chocolate chips instead and just dunk the cookie in. But this is so much easier, and you're still getting that amazing white chocolate flavor payoff. Enjoy! Alright friends, there you have it. That's my cookie of the day. I really hope you enjoyed the recipe. I know my family definitely did. Before you go, please let me know what your favorite holiday cookie is. And keep your eyes peeled, because maybe I'm making an allergy-friendly version of it this year, and if I'm not, I'll definitely keep it in mind for next year. I want to thank you all so much for being here and watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click that notification bell, because I post at least 3 times a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Happy holidays!